Cold is not merely a temperature in the north of Britannia, it is a weight. It settles into the cracks of the stone, the marrow of the bone, and the iron of the soul. But today the chill of the Pictish mists was burned away by a heat that defied the sun. I am Servius Galba, decurion of the Alla Petriana, and I stand upon the spine of the world, the iron wall of Hadrian. For 80 miles, this barrier of stone and grit was meant to keep the barbarians out, but the things screaming in the clouds today do not care for borders or emperors. They came from the zenith, a swarm of silver-winged demons that turned the sky into a churning sea of violet fire and mechanical shrieks. The air hummed. It was a sound that vibrated the very foundation of the wall, a low-frequency growl that made the teeth of the legionaries rattle in their gums. We had prepared for this. 4 months, we had worked with the starsmiths, captured engineers from a fallen sky vessel who had traded their secrets for their lives. We had hollowed out the stone towers, embedding them with thunderstones, the pulsating blue crystals that fueled the enemy's own wrath. Now the wall was alive. It breathed a faint, electric azure light, and every iron-bound gate was a conductor for the fury of the storm. Galba. The vultures are diving. The voice of Tullus, the battery master, was nearly lost in the sudden roar of the wind. I looked up. The black clouds, thick as charcoal smoke, split open to reveal 1,000 silver shards. They were the coelom vultures, sleek, predatory drones made of a metal that never rusted, their wings serrated like razors and their eyes glowing with a malevolent, pulsating crimson. They didn't fly, they fell. They plummeted from the clouds in a synchronized, lethal formation, their bodies whistling as they broke the speed of the wind. Man the bolts. Unleash the lightning. I screamed, my hand gripping the cold bronze of the great ballista. The weapon was a masterpiece of Roman engineering and star-spawned terror. Its heavy wooden frame had been reinforced with iron bands taken from a crashed scout ship, and the string was a braid of silver wire that hissed when it touched the air. I slammed the release lever. The thunderstone, embedded in the ballista's carriage, flared with a blinding brilliance. The iron bolt, 6 feet of solid metal, was engulfed in an aura of blue-white electricity. It didn't just fly, it lanced through the air like a bolt from Jupiter himself. The projectile struck the lead vulture mid-dive. There was no explosion of fire, only a violent, soundless expansion of blue energy that turned the silver drone into a cloud of fine gray powder. Again. Load the blue iron. Below me, on the ramparts, the legionaries of the 6th Victorious were locked in a thunder testudo. They held shields that had been etched with alien runes and connected by copper wiring to the wall's central conduits. As the vultures reached the wall, they unleashed needles of white plasma. The shields didn't break. They projected a dome of shimmering blue light, a barrier of pure magnetism that caught the plasma bolts and fed the energy back into the wall's batteries. But the vultures were not the only threat. The sky groaned. A sound like the earth being torn in half echoed across the cracks. From the heart of the storm, the Stormbringer descended. It was a disk of obsidian glass a mile wide, rotating with a slow, terrifying majesty. Its underside was a forest of glowing violet apertures, each one gathering the static electricity of the atmosphere. The mothership. It's targeting the mile castles. Tullus yelled, his face illuminated by a sudden flash of purple light. A pillar of violet lightning lanced down from the Stormbringer, striking the wall 2 miles to the west. The stone didn't just shatter, it sublimated. 100 feet of Hadrian's wall was turned into a cloud of incandescent dust in a heartbeat. The shockwave hit us like a physical hammer, throwing men from the battlements and cracking the very tower I stood upon. Stay on the guns. If the wall breaks, Britannia falls. I scrambled back to the great ballista. The thunderstone was glowing red, hissing as the rainwater turned to steam on its surface. It was overloading. The energy we were drawing from the storm was too much for the Roman bronze to contain. Tullus, we need more discharge. Open the floodgates to the primary battery. If I do that, the tower will detonate. Galba. We are already dead if we don't hit that ship. I grabbed a bucket of cooling oil and dumped it over the gears, the smoke blinding me for a second. I manually cranked the winch, the silver wire string cutting into my palms through my leather gloves. My vision was a blur of blue sparks and red blood. I aimed the great ballista not at the vultures, but at the glowing violet aperture in the center of the Stormbringer. It was the eye, the source of the lightning. The vultures were swarming the tower now. I saw a silver wing slice through the neck of a legionary 10 feet away. The boy didn't even have time to scream before his head was taken. A vulture landed on the parapet, its red eyes inches from mine, its metallic mandibles clicking in a digital code of slaughter. I didn't reach for my gladius. I reached for the firing hammer. Clang. The ballista roared. The recoil was so powerful it shattered the wooden legs of the carriage and threw me backward into the stone wall. The iron bolt, carrying the entire charge of the tower's thunderstones, streaked upward. It was a solid line of white-hot lightning, a bridge of human defiance connecting the earth to the sky. The bolt hit the eye. For a heartbeat, the world went silent. The wind stopped. The rain hung suspended in the air. Then the Stormbringer shrieked. It was a sound that shattered the glass in every Roman fort from Eboracum to Londinium. The violet light in the ship's core turned a sickly, translucent white. The obsidian hull began to crack, massive shards of black glass the size of temples breaking off and falling into the Pictish wilderness below. The chain reaction was absolute. The energy we had pumped into the ship's core reversed the gravity well. The Stormbringer didn't explode, it imploded. It collapsed in on itself, drawing the clouds, the vultures, and the very air into a crushing, soundless void. A final, blinding flash of white light erupted over the north. The shockwave flattened the trees for 10 miles and sent a wall of pressure that knocked every Roman and barbarian to the ground. Then the clouds vanished. The storm was gone. The violet fire was snuffed out. I pulled myself up, my armor charred, my hands shaking with a palsy that would never leave them. I looked out from the ruined tower. The sky was a pale, honest blue, the first sunlight in a week touching the scorched stones of the wall. The thousands of coelom vultures were gone, fallen to the earth as inert heaps of cooling silver. The wall was a ruin. The iron wall of Hadrian was now a jagged, blackened scar across the throat of Britannia. We had lost 3,000 men in an hour. But as I looked to the north, I saw the survivors of the 6th Victorious rising from the rubble, their broken shields reflecting the morning sun. They weren't cheering. They were Romans. They were already looking for their centurions, already reaching for their shovels to begin the work of rebuilding. The starsmiths were wrong. They thought our stone was primitive, our iron crude. They didn't realize that a wall is more than just rocks. It is the will of a people who refuse to be looked down upon. I took off my helmet and let the cold, clean wind of the north wash over my face. My hands were stained with the blue ichor of the stars and the red blood of my brothers. I looked at the horizon, where the last of the gray ash was being carried away toward the sea. The eagle was still there, tattered and scorched on the standard pole, but its wings were still spread. The north remains a land of stone and storm, and the wall stands as a silent sentinel over a world that refused to be taken from the air. We are the guardians of the edge, the men of the Iron Age who looked at the heavens and fired back. The sky is empty now, the fire is gone, and the silence of the highlands is the only empire we have left. The stone is scarred. The lightning is spent. The wall remains. The sun climbs higher, illuminating the silver wreckage in the valleys. The eagles of Rome do not fly in the clouds. They walk upon the earth, and the earth is still ours to hold. I descend the stairs of the broken tower, my boots heavy on the rubble, and the long, cold silence of Britannia begins once more.